talking with Katy Ring, who's a director with K2 Advisory. She's part of SIFT Media, and she was one of our key contributors this evening and speaking about cloud issues with a very lively bunch of folks, and wanted to get her sort of call-outs from this evening of what some of the issues were, and maybe start again with security. A lot of discussion around cloud security and what that means from an adoption standpoint.
One of the fascinating things about this session was that in the drinks before we sat down to dinner, I spoke to a lot of different CIOs and IT directors, and one of their main concerns was security, either internally in terms of using cloud or externally when trying to sell to clients. When we sat down and discussed this issue across the table over dinner, it became clear that actually the more we think about it and the advantages of using cloud in terms of creating a more secure environment for your data and your applications, we came to the conclusion across the table, a whole group of us, about a dozen of us, that actually the issue is primarily to do with education in the market, getting people used to the advantages of cloud in comparison to some of the disadvantages of client server in a security environment.
Very interesting. So the attitude really did seem to change in the room a bit. There were a lot of different companies here, some with a lot of legacy apps and some that are very new companies and see no reason that they can't put all of their applications into the cloud. Interesting from your viewpoint, did you see that kind of sort of division amongst the audience or the participants here?
I thought it was very fascinating because, as you mentioned, we had a very diverse variety of organisations represented, some smaller high-tech organisations as well as some very big manufacturing organisations, and yet all of them believed that eventually there is no reason why every application couldn't be deployed in the cloud. The issue with some of the organisations, the very large ones, is the transition cost, but it was interesting that the consensus was that ultimately they believe all applications will be deployed in a cloud-like environment.
Any other comments from this evening? Any surprises that you heard from the group of companies here?
I thought it was interesting that there was complete agreement that whether we call it cloud computing in 5 years or more, we don't know, but that the direction that we're going in terms of preparing our application estates for use and deployment over the internet is definitely the right direction. And that was complete consensus around the table, irrespective of sector or size of the organisation.
And one last thing. Early on in the evening, you had a very interesting definition of the cloud. I'm wondering if you might repeat it.
I participate in a lot of cloud events, and some of the comments I get suggest that cloud computing is a technology without a purpose. It's a marketing hype. It's no real value to it. And one of the things I wanted to put on the table, we discussed a little bit during dinner, is the fact that cloud computing is the IT industry's response to creating a more effective and efficient way of making use of the internet for businesses, organisations and governments. And that was, I think, pretty well accepted when we discussed this.
Yeah, nobody questioned it, and I thought it was a very interesting comment. Thanks, Katy. Really appreciate your help.
Thank you, Phil.